Captain Chris Myers here, Central Florida Sight Fishing Charters. And if you want to make a good fly cast, there are 5 simple rules that you're going to have to follow. There's a lot of different techniques and styles. You could fish sidearm, you can fish straight overhand, you can cast on the other side of your body, you can cast at a lot of different angles, styles, finger on top, thumb over to the side. These are different styles, but everybody who's making a good cast, their rod is doing the same thing, no matter where it's tilted on the plane of the earth. I'm going to go over those 5 things with you, and then later on in more videos to come, we'll go into each one of those in detail. But if you want to analyze what's wrong with your cast, see if you're violating one of these rules, and I think you'll find if your cast isn't going just like you want, that you are. The first rule is that we must eliminate the slack, and put another way, you cannot begin the cast until you make the fly move. And the reason I emphasize you is because we could drop this fly, I could have a whole bunch of slack here, and if I were standing on the edge of a stream, I could take my fly, which is right here, and drop this into the stream, and the fly is moving. I'm not making the fly move, the water's making it move, and I still have a whole bunch of slack, and I can move this rod all the way back and all the way in front of me, and I still have not moved that fly. It's still sitting right here at my feet because all I'm doing is moving slack around. So in order to begin a cast, you have to make the fly move, and that cast doesn't start until you moving the rod causes the fly to move. We want that stroke to begin with our rod tip down at the water. If you're starting with your rod tip up here, you're already over 6 feet through your casting stroke, and now you're going to have to reach back farther. And if it took you that far before you started moving the fly, that's 6-7 feet of slack line, and all you did was move slack and not begin your cast. So we always want to start with the line tight so that when you begin to lift the rod, the fly moves. So that's an easy one that anyone can do with just paying a little bit of attention. The second rule is that the tip of this rod needs to follow a straight line path. If you want to get a tight loop, you got to have a straight line path with the rod tip. That means as you move your hand, if your thumb is on top or if your finger is on top, whatever you have on top, I do it with my thumb. If my thumb moves back and forth in a straight line, so does my finger. Easy, simple way to check and see if my rod tip's following a straight line. Hold your rod in your non-casting hand, make your casting stroke. This is my casting stroke. Just cast like you were casting without your rod in your hand. Then pull your rod up here. This is a perfectly straight line. I think we can all agree on that. I'm going to hold up a straight line. Wherever my thumb goes, if my thumb's on top, that means the tip of the fly rod goes there. If I can check right here and see, does my hand move back and forth along a straight line, or are you bending your wrist? And just coming off that straight line, this little tiny bit, just that much, or coming out here away from the straight line, making this cast, you're 80 degrees off your straight line. If you are not following this perfect straight line, and it should be most of the time, slightly up in the back, slightly down in the front. And for a short cast, I might only move this far. For a long cast, I might move all the way back and forth, but it's keeping on that straight line. I can always check that right away. If your rod tip isn't moving in the straight line path, you're not going to get a tight loop and a good cast. The next rule is going to be we have to have proper acceleration to a sudden and an instant stop. Now, proper acceleration is something I can explain to you. I can tell you what it feels like to me, but it's something you're going to have to experiment with until you get it just right. Proper acceleration means we go at a constant acceleration and then we stop instantly. And a constant acceleration means we start off slow and we get progressively faster, and we're going full speed at the very end of our stroke. It does not mean that we start off full speed and try to maintain that full speed all the way through. So when I'm making that cast, most of my speed is at the very end. It's not a matter of starting off full speed, which would kind of look like this. You see how I snatched the rod up and started off at full speed. What this kind of feels like to me is if this was a super long paintbrush, I dipped it in some paint, and then I want to fling all that paint in one spot behind me. I fling it up and back, that's where the line will go. If I came up super fast like this, and this was paint, the paint would spray all the way around, all on the camera, all up here above me, and a little bit would get back there. Well, that's what the fly line does. If you snatch it up, watch your fly will go in a big giant loop all the way up over your head. If I don't come up with enough speed, and I kind of go like this, even if I stop in the right place, the paint would dribble down my hand. That's what the fly line does. It just kind of dribbles back here behind me and falls in a pile. There is no loop formed. When I get the speed just right, I'll get a nice tight loop in both the front and the back. The next two rules go hand in hand, and again, they're easy to explain. They're something that you're going to have to experiment with, and you'll get them just right. The first one is, for a short cast, we're going to make a short stroke. For a little short cast, our hand only moves a little short way, make a little short stroke. If I'm making a long cast, if I want to cast 80, 90 feet, I might cast from way out here to way back here, even rock my body a little bit to get a little more distance. But my hand is still traveling along that straight line. No matter how far back and forth it moves, I cannot come off the straight line. And the final rule is, for a short cast, there's going to be a short pause at the end of my stroke. I have to wait for this line to unroll behind me on my back cast, unroll in front of me in my forward stroke. Each stroke I have to wait for that line to unroll before I change directions. If I don't, I lose tension on my tip. If I lose tension on the tip, I lose the bend in the rod, and then I don't get a proper cast. So for a short cast, there's only a short amount of line outside. It only takes a little short time for the line to unroll. So short cast, short stroke, short pause. For a long cast, I might be waiting a second for all that line to unroll. And it takes a much longer pause for that amount of line to unroll. So as I vary the amount of line outside my tip, I need to vary the stroke length, and I need to vary the pause in between it. So if you follow those 5 rules, you'll find your cast will start to improve immensely. Again, real quick, they are: you must eliminate all the slack. The cast doesn't begin until you start it moving. You must follow a straight line path with the rod tip. No matter where you're holding the rod, it has to follow a straight line if you want a tight loop. You must maintain proper acceleration. That means constant acceleration to a sudden and instant stop. You can't have any drift after you stop or creeping forward. It has to come back and stop and wait for that thing to unroll. And then the last 2 rules are short cast, short stroke, long cast, long stroke, short cast, short pause, long cast, long pause. So try to memorize those rules, and then when you're out casting, or write them down on a card. If something doesn't go right with your cast, you can look at and say, which one of these rules, which one or more of these rules am I violating that made my cast go like I didn't want it to. I think if you start really paying attention to those rules, you'll find your cast will improve, because that's the only way that you can make a good, proper, tight looped fly cast.